Hey, what's up guys? Brian with another episode of BS Bassin coming here today. Doing a little work on the F-150. Gas prices getting up there. Everybody may be looking for a little bit better fuel economy, or maybe you're looking for a little bit more horsepower or a little bit of noise coming out of underneath your hood. And to do that, what we're going to be doing today is installing the S&B 5081 cold air intake. So S&B intakes, as you guys know, this one runs around like 330 bucks. Never goes on sale. Half the time you got to get, pre-order it, because when they do get them in stock, they sell out. This is known to be one of the most horsepower and torque rating increases for a standalone cold air intake on a 3.5 liter EcoBoost F-150. Now this is a first gen F-150 or F-150 EcoBoost. It is a 2016 with the 3.5. So this one still has what's considered the first gen 3.5, whereas the second gen came out in 2017, and that one had the dual injectors, where it had injectors in the cylinders, direct injection, and then it also had manifold injection or multi-port injection on the top. And what that did was help clean and keep clean the ports from the intake manifold going into the cylinder heads without caking of oil, blow-by oil, through the PCV system. But anyways, I'm going to show you guys how to install this kit. I'm going to quickly open this box up and we'll see what's in there. You got him. Alright, so here we go. I haven't opened the box yet. As you can see, I personally think it's been packaged very well. You got your air filter in a separate box. We'll put this up here. This is your intake tubing. Let's take it out of the bag. Looks nice and clean. It's going to go into the actual intake box. One will go into the intake tube that goes around to the passenger side of the vehicle, and this one here to the lower part of the driver's side of the vehicle to the turbochargers. So that's that. Have our hose clamps, some zip ties, a grommet, and a couple plastic pieces. I'll show you where those go as well. And then this goes on the air filter box itself. This is the scoop. Your factory truck has the same scoop on it. Similar scoop. I don't know if that one may be bigger. One of the hose connectors. So we got two hose connectors. This is your third one that actually goes into the intake box, which that's the big piece we're about to take out. So, and that should be everything. But there you go. Here's your actual intake box. That plastic cover is going to go here once we have our filter in there. And just nice heavy plastic. These right here, these nubs on the bottom, are going to go into your truck underneath where your current intake box is. And let's get to the install, guys. Alright, well, our first step here, we're going to start loosening this. I actually took that out. What holds those in is little clips like this. So you push them in, and then when you pop this down, the top, it expanded the bottom, and what that does is hold this down. So what you do is you lift up on the center piece and then pull the whole piece out. So these are out. Now we're going to disconnect our hose clamps from the intake tubing to the intake box. Just loosen them up. Camera may not be perfectly steady right now. Got it kind of stuffed underneath the truck here, under the hood. The weird one is this hose clamp down here for the second intake tube. You got to kind of get behind it. We'll also remove our intake sensor. That just spins and comes out, but the other option is you could just pinch it and take the connector off, and we'll worry about that later. Now, And the other screw, like I said, is kind of around the back here. Alright, so once you have the hose clamps loosened, just pop the top of the intake box off, wiggle this out, and we're going to take this all out as one piece. So we'll start disconnecting here. These are tight. You could hit them with a little WD-40, actually works pretty well, or just soapy water works really well. So just push this one forward a little. That's not working. Pop that off. Try to lift up on this one here. And these are pretty snug in there. There we go. Got that one. Got that one. There we go. So we're all off. We got the intake tube off. Now we have to remove the intake box. Put those parts aside. To remove your intake box, there's a 13mm nut here. But you also have some wiring on the side, so we're going to lift that up. You could use like some body trim panel removers to help lift this up. Let's put it underneath. Pop it up. There you go. There's two of them. The other one I already loosened up. Take your filter out. Gives you a little access to the box. And put that somewhere else. Now the 13mm. Let's grab a ratchet and pop that one loose. Now this is what's holding this box into the corner of your engine bay, along with two grommets on the bottom. I'll show them to you once we get this out. Just take your 13mm bolt, save it. When you move this, you notice your snorkel part comes out too. Pop it up. That all comes out together. We're going to take this piece. We're going to take this piece here out. To do so, I'm going to push the metal part through. So we got the metal part through. And then you can pull the rubber grommet right off. First part of installation here is we're going to have to get our rubber grommet in here. So, like I said before, a little bit of soapy water helps on this. A little soapy water on there, a little bubbly water. Rub it around. And then pop it through. See how easy that was with a little soapy water? Otherwise, when that's dry, it's really hard to push it in there. Now, we take our metal piece, slide it back through. We'll wipe the soapy water away. We don't really have to, but we're going to. Now, so once we get our grommet and bushing in the intake on that side, we're going to sneak around to the nose of the intake. And the kit comes with these little push pin, let me get a little closer, push pin things. We're going to put the nose of the intake on, the scoop if you might say, that on over the intake itself. Okay. So put it on over the front, and we take these pieces and pop them in there. There's 4 of these. Two on the top and 2 on the bottom. Come on. Just make sure it's on all the way. And then the bottom ones will go on easy as well. Here you go, guys. You see the top, then you see the two buttons on the top, and then the 2 buttons on the bottom right there. So once those are pressed in, you're good. Now we're going to put the rubber hose clamp, a rubber hose piece right here. Make sure you put this has 2 ribs in it. Make sure you have one on the inside and one over the outside. That one's on good. Now the biggest hose clamp that this kit comes with is the one that you're going to put on the top here. I'll slide it around. Actually going to have to loosen it up to get it on there. Okay. That's good. Let's get this on here. Make sure it's all the way pressed in before we start tightening this clamp here. That's nice and tight. Give it a quick test to see if it'll pull out. No, it's in there tight. So now we can actually put our intake into place. We have those 2 grommets on the bottom that we have to look for. I'll slide this over. My phone's in the way here. I believe we're good. Now the one thing I want you guys to look at is right here. Make sure you have clearance right there. You see this? You just don't want anything rubbing there. Make sure this is down. Now we're ready to put in the 13mm bolt in the back, and then the 2 pins that we removed from the front right here we're going to be putting back in, which these holes are lining up really good. We'll get that 13mm started. Once that bolt's started, you can just use your socket to tighten it up. Because of the new air box, it is a little difficult to get to that bolt, but nothing hard. Also try not to block your view, so a little bit more difficult for me. This doesn't have to be crazy tight. Get it snug, a little bit extra, so box isn't moving unless you really force on it. Now, these clips right here, these are the ones that when you push the head in, the bottom expands. Those hold the front of the intake to the radiator support of the truck. We're going to put those in. Push down on the back. Man, these are nice. Everything fits good. Yeah, those are real nice and tight. So that's good. Now, intake box isn't moving nowhere. Well, now that this is nice and tight in there, we're going to get the intake tube and we're going to put the hose sleeves and clamps on it, and then get it ready to go into the truck. Alright, this step, we have the intake tube, we have the large hose connector, small hose connector, and we're going to have some hose clamps, but we also have this O-ring here. This O-ring here is going to go into your intake tube right here, so I'm going to put a little soap and water on it to get it easy to go in there, and that's what's going to hold your intake air temperature sensor in. So we'll get this lubed up. It's a little soap and water on it, and then a little more difficult than the last O-ring or grommet we put in, but there we go. And then just stick your hand in the tube, make sure it's seated really well inside. I always wipe away the extra soap and water around them. there you go, guys. You see that's in there nice, holding nice. Now, for the hose tubes connectors, it's two sizes, so you can't really mess them up. You're not going to put one in. You're going to put one on the outside. Put this one on here. And the larger one on the other one. Okay. Now I want to get the hose clamps on here and just not tight so that we hold these in place. Again, for the hose connectors, there's a big hose clamp, or a small hose clamp and a big hose clamp. You can see the size difference right here. Obviously they'll be easy to fit which one on which. So. So with the hose connectors on and the hose clamp started on the one side, I put my other hose clamp on, but you see how big this is? I'm just going to snug it up so that it's not going to fall off while I try to put this on. And that may save me some time when I go to slide this down on that one connector that was a little pesty to get off. I couldn't show you guys a good angle on it when I was taking it off on that intake tube. So this one here, I'm just going to put it a little snug so we know it's not going anywhere. There. I have this one the same way, so it's not going to fall off, and then we could actually insert our intake tube into the intake box. So the next step is feeding the intake tube through the air box, and as we do that, we want to try to get both ends of our hose clamps lined up with the turbo inlet tubes. So again, always make sure you're not pushing on anything as you're installing this. You don't want to crack something in the car. The bottom one is pretty lined up. The top one, here, it's going to be lined up here in just a second. Boom, just like that. Now we can loosen these hose clamps, tighten them on before we put our air filter on. We'll just make sure everything's in a good position yet. Then we're going to put our air filter on the inside of the air box. Hey guys, I actually forgot to hit record, but one of the things you have to do is put the air filter in the air box before you begin shoving your air filter tube into the air box. But anyways, we got it in there, and I just tightened the hose clamp, so our air filter's in here. Real nice air filter, by the way. And then we're going to have to put our intake air temperature sensor into the grommet over here on the side. Alright guys, the snorkel all the way in. Get your air filter in position. You're going to tighten that up. Make sure it's on all the way. There's actually like a groove that it stops at. Get this nice and tight. You don't want this to come off, you know, from the engine torquing or any vibration, blah blah blah. You don't want that to come off and then you're sucking in unfiltered air. Cause a lot of damage. Intake air temperature sensor right here. We got to push it in. I suggest lubing it up really good because unfortunately that grommet's pretty tight. And the first time I went to push it in, the grommet fell into the intake tube. I was able to grab it, pull it out, put it on. Then we're going to zip tie this up. But the next step is actually putting our cover over here. So, it comes with a really nice, sleek cover. It does have plastic coating on both sides to protect it during shipping. So we'll peel that off real quick. I'm not going to say my plastic coating stayed in the best condition, but And we're just going to put that cool cover on there. We actually got to run this plastic trim that came in our kit around it. So I'm just going to start at the top in the middle, the back in the middle. Once you get that plastic seal all the way around it, set it down. We're going to start screwing it in. Alright, once we have that cover ready to go on, just going to take a Phillips head screwdriver, start one or two of the screws so that nothing moves on you. And I want to show you one quick note about these screws. If you look here, there's a little rubber grommet you got to put on the screws before you thread it in. That's going to keep this plastic from cracking as you tighten it up. So I'll set those there. And also this little gasket on top kind of shrinks on you while you're working with it. It's like this end here doesn't meet up all the way. You got to kind of feed it around again, pushing the slack to the one end so that there's no gap. I'm actually going to hold that down and get those two corner screws tight so that that gap doesn't open back up on me. So with that one there started, just holding the two pieces of that gasket together there. Now let's start the other one on the other corner, and this should hold that gasket from moving on me a little bit while I tighten these up. Keep that gap at the end nice and tight. We don't have to go super tight with them. Just getting them all in there. Nice and easy. Just remember, they have that rubber on them so that you don't crack the plastic. Clear cover, which means don't over tighten them. That's all that rubber's there for, is to prevent you guys from making a mistake on your own. But at the same time, understand why it's there and respect it. Don't over tighten them because you got a little rubber grommet on them. Actually, on this end, the gasket slid a little bit. We're just gonna, I'll have to loosen those up, push it back in. We'll hold that in so that it doesn't slide nowhere. And hopefully with the screwdriver I can push that gasket down in there. Right like that. I'll retighten the corner first, and then I'll tighten that middle one. Perfect. So the kit's installed. Now what we're going to do is we're going to zip tie. You really don't have to zip tie. You can move this one over. I'm going to flip it over, push it in there. And that keeps our intake air temp sensor out of the way. You got enough slack here for the motor movement. I just flipped it over and pushed it in here. I'm going to show you a quick close-up of that. So here we go, guys. Here's the intake box all put together. You can see this is a little bent when I had to remove the air filter to get that grommet for the IAT, or intake air temperature sensor. Bent the filter a little bit, but it's still good. And then here's the intake air temperature sensor. You see I took this, I flipped it over and pushed it into this open hole right here. I don't know if that would have something in it in a different model vehicle, but this is an F-150 Lariat with the 3.5, so I mean it's a pretty loaded truck. I don't think there's too many accessories that would tap in there, but that was my way of keeping it out of the way. Otherwise you could zip tie it right there. And the kit does come with some zip ties, so You guys have it. Got some LED bulbs in there too, but S&B cold air intake. If you guys didn't watch, I did put a UPR catch can on here to get that blow-by gas out of the intake. Do a little less preventive maintenance on here. Sounds good. Let's see if we get any better fuel economy. Well, hey guys, that wraps up another episode of BS Bassin here. If you guys are looking to have this kit installed, or this cold air intake installed in your car, hopefully this helps you understand how the installation is going to be. Without doing the video, I'd say it'd take max 35-40 minutes to put this in. And hope the video helped you out. And don't forget to like, subscribe, and share with your buddies.